All right. Welcome to the Generic Discussion. I am Nestor Samat, smartest generic nerd. You know my guest by many names, also by many titles. He is the DM of the Great Theogony of Kairos. You probably know him as Victor. On as
LA by Night.
Yep, LA by Night, as well as the Undisputed Baron of the Valley, which is a great title, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And creative director for Demiplane RPG.
That's true. Also, there's a person behind you. It's like a scary movie. I'm like, it's coming from inside the house, Nestor. It's coming from inside the house.
Rumi, yeah.
Yes. Hello. Hi. Thank you for having me.
Great. It's great to have you. I'm still amazed you accepted my offer.
Hey man, thank you. I appreciate the invitation. Glad I could do it. Always got time to talk shop.
All right. Well, the main focus of the interview will be the wrapping up of season 5 now of LA by Night, as well as the more recent announcement you guys did for Demiplane, which is the Pathfinder Nexus.
Yep.
And the show to accompany it.
Yep. Big things happening. Yeah, pending when you're seeing this. The finale of LA by Night is in 2 days. Friday on the 29th. Night falls for the final time. This Friday at 8 p.m. Pacific.
Yep. As far
Which
as
is hard to say, really, but there it is.
Is it a little bittersweet going into this 5th season, knowing it's the last chapter of the Chronicle?
It's good to know that you will have an end and that end will come on your terms, because I've been on a lot of projects that was not the case, that it just didn't get renewed or got plugged, and there was so much more that wanted to happen and didn't. So the fact that we got to consciously tie off our narrative was good, but it also meant the stakes were so much higher. And I personally knew there was really only 2 stories left that we hadn't told. I had no idea what was going to happen. I won't spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it, but I was absolutely right about which one it was going to be. And going into this season, Jason asked us, he's like, look, if you're not in the episode, don't come on set and don't talk to each other about it. So we did not know. So I had my episode, we shot my episode first and my episode aired first, and so I had some idea what was going to happen in the others, but they all had no clue. So then when you have that first episode, when we're back together and we're telling each other what happened, we really didn't know. And what's funny is, he asked us not to talk about it. And, not all of my castmates were quite so honorable. So, they were like, so what happened in yours? I was like, I'm not going to tell you. And it's like, well, here's what happened in mine. I'm like, I don't want to know, like, stop it. So
very hands over the ears. Like, I can't hear you.
I can't hear you. Nope, I'm not listening. Blah, 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 blah. Yep. No. So you got that. Those were all, genuine real-time reactions that were happening.
Is it interesting knowing that you've been able to see Victor go through this very interesting through line?
I was I was just talking to somebody about this, and I pointed out to them something that I don't think a lot of people notice, that every time Victor's beast spoke to him, he agreed with it 100% of the time. And that was, a conscious choice, in that I was trying to very subtly reflect something that is different about the Ventrue. Even though the beast is still a monster, even if Ventrue's beast is a monster, Ventrue don't ambush turn people. Like, you're not going to get drunk at a frat party and wake up a Ventrue. That's not how it works. You must be invited in. Chances are incredibly high you spend some time as a ghoul before you're turned. You are 1,000% clear on the fraternity that you're about to join, or sorority, the organization you're about to join, and you do so, with your eyes wide open. Victor does not resent his sire. Unfortunately, spoiler alert, we never get to meet his sire, but I know who his sire is. He doesn't resent his sire. So as such, he does not resent the voice of the beast. But it also was very intentional on Jason's half, that those appeals to ego and appeal to monstrousness and things like, who do they think they are? Show them who's boss. And I am going to show them who's boss. You know what I mean? That's still pulling him further down the slide towards being monstrous. And I definitely think Victor becomes more and more relentless all the way up until the end. Like, I mean, if you saw last week,
Yep.
you know, that again, won't spoil it, but I mean,
Yeah,
he's,
agreed.
yeah,
No spoilers
yeah,
here.
but yeah, no, but he'll, yeah, no, he'll sleep like a baby. He'll sleep like a baby. Like there's friends and enemies, and the enemies get no mercy. It's one of those like, hey, can we talk this out? Oh, we can't. Great, blam. You know, it's just
Mhm.
that's who he became.
Yeah, very much. He does not regret any of his life choices leading up to this
Zero.
finale.
Again, you know, technically Kindred don't sleep. When the sun comes up, you're just a corpse. But if he did, it would be like a baby. He doesn't regret any of it.
I doubt he does, considering you get to potentially stay an undisputed Baron of the Valley.
We got one more episode. We'll see. Yeah, one more episode.
All right. So as far as the Pathfinder Nexus and this whole like multimedia project you have going on behind the scenes,
Mhm.
Are you hoping that this leads to more digital tool sets potentially for Pathfinder or other systems?
I mean, yeah, that's wild. That's weird. You know, if we were to do it for other games, who can say? That's odd. That's bizarre. Who
Almost
can
like
say?
Yeah,
you know,
can't say.
What a wild idea, you know?
Yeah.
You know, obviously, I have to be more careful about some of the things I say, because obviously in my capacity as creative director. But I think we've all seen in recent years how digital tools make the game easier, and by making the game easier, they make it more accessible.
Mhm.
And accessibility is key, you know, lowering the barrier to things. And I have an unannounced Dungeons and Dragons project, which within the next month or so, you will know what I'm talking about. I have to vague book about it now, but you know, 2 to 3 weeks, you will know exactly what I mean.
Keep an eye on the Twitters.
Keep an eye on the Twittergrams, yeah. And we were going through making characters, and they'd gotten players' handbooks for everybody, and some of the people didn't know the game, and they were like, "Well, what do I need this book for?" I'm like, "You don't, you know." Well, should I reference anything in here? I'm like, no. We're gonna do it all in D&D Beyond. We're gonna talk you all through making a character. You got any questions about anything, you type it up in that search bar, you know? And they were like, well, but I can still read this part of this part in that book. And I'm like, you can, you just shouldn't, because it's all changed so much and it's so much more accessible. And Pathfinder has just a ton of content, just a ton of books. You know, I played first edition Pathfinder pretty seriously. I ran a game for 4 years. We went all the way from level 1 to level 20 and all 10 mythic tiers, because at the time I was a 4th edition refugee, like so many other people that Paizo was, you know, built on the back of. And you know, if something like the Pathfinder Nexus had existed during my time, you know, that game would have gone on even further and even longer. So being able to just make the game more readily available to people in and of itself is a beautiful thing, because we all benefit as the hobby expands.
Yeah, which leads me into a interesting line of thinking that I had while I was prepping for this interview, is that with the idea of that we're in like or about setting currently, and a lot of people like, I like the idea of somebody starting up a chronicle of Vampire the Masquerade, where everybody from different clans is primarily just communicating online, where their coterie is considered this online group of people.
I mean, it could be done, you know. I mean, StreckNet collapsed as far as we know, but you know, I'm like, you could probably put together a secured network, hopefully, or it's not a very secure network, and then it goes where it goes. But yeah, especially younger kindred, you know, people that grew up in their human life with the internet, or thin bloods, the people of that type, yeah, that very much would be something they do.
Yeah, it could almost be a plot point for a future show or whatever.
I mean, you know, some of us live stream, you know, pretty consistently. So that's fine.
Yeah. As far as the future show you have launching in January, I assume you have more stuff coming down the pipeline in terms of those regards.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The Pathfinder show is just going to be the first thing. And I mean, and not every saying that more shows are coming doesn't necessarily mean more tool sets are coming, because we started with Heroes of the Plains with D&D, and we don't have a D&D tool set.
Yep.
But things that just prominently feature the platform and just get attention to the platform. The more times people hear the name Demiplane, the more likely somebody is to sign up for an account. You should sign up for a free account at demiplane.com. You can play games with your friends and find friends to play games with. So, that's always useful. And of course, now, with a Pathfinder tool set, it makes sense if we're going to do a Pathfinder show to, show off the tools and just get more attention to the game, more attention to Demiplane, more attention to the channel, and, just tell a dope story, which is at the end of the day, the name of the game, what we're really trying to do.
Great. So as far as most of the shows and stuff that you've worked on, do you find working remotely now with all this stuff going on more accessible to reach wider talents?
Yeah, I mean, in the before times, Heads and Boxes content was actively looked down on. That being around the table was a superior experience. And it is still an easier way to play, to be able to just feel that vibe, and just kind of be able to read the room a little better. But because of the now increased acceptance of Heads and Boxes, because it was that or don't have a show, that is allowed. I've participated in games that getting those people in a room would never have happened, and still will probably never happen. With the Black Dice Society wouldn't exist as it does, because Tanya's in Chicago, Mark's in Canada, and DJ's in Texas. The rest of us are in LA, but that show literally would not be that show if it was a solely studio production. And yeah, I think it has somewhat democratized streaming, in that even though live filming is becoming more more accessible again, for the Pathfinder thing, we're gonna bring Mark into town, so we will do it all around a table. But that's conducive for a 6-shot. It's not conducive for an ongoing show like Black Dice, for instance. I mean, we're probably all only going to be in a room together for con games, for instance.
Yeah. As far as speaking on the topic of con games, you guys have PAX Unplugged. You've got the San Diego Comic-Con event, which I can imagine has a bit of pressure to the actual session. The idea of that many eyes being on you. Does it ever get nerve-wracking playing in front of a live audience?
Never. I mean, but I love that stuff. I live for that. The audience and the people and everything. It's put me in a strange situation, because I just went to Gamehole Con last week, which is my first con in the pandemic. And in the before times, if you ever been to San Diego Comic-Con, you ever been to Comic-Con? I don't know what part of the world you're in, so.
I have never been to a convention, period.
Ooh, where are you located? If you don't mind saying, if it's a private thing, no problem. Zone of safety. I don't mean to ambush you in public.
It is fine. I'm okay with you turning this just interview back on me. Okay,
that's what I do.
I am located Philadelphia.
Oh, okay.
So I will be in town for the PAX Unplugged
event. Cons are great. There's a 250,000 people go to Comic-Con, or at least they did. It's gonna be a minute before it's 250,000 people again. Possibly never, but but that's how it used to be. And there's a certain moment when you could come out of the convention center, and there was just literally human beings as far as the eye could see in every direction. There was just people. And that's my moment of maximum power, when my full Super Saiyan glow, that's what when it comes. But now I'm in a position that we're in a pandemic, and I'm I need you to get away from me. It's actually it's a strange thing to be the thing I love most, but now I actually don't want. But Gamehole Con was great. It was low pressure. It was pretty light. Already had, it just so happens I'm on a project where I have to get COVID tested weekly, and I already found out I'm negative, so dodge that bullet. And it's so to your question, no, I feel zero pressure when the people are there. But I also I feel exactly the same if one person's watching or if 100,000 people are watching. Because
Okay.
back when LA by Night launched, we had 10,000 live viewers for the first episode, and we had no idea. We didn't know if anybody was going to care about Vampire. We didn't know if it was on too late. We knew it was Friday night, and and those were huge numbers in those days, 10,000 people. And we went to break, and it was like, ooh, so many people are watching. Should we change anything? And I was like, no, they tuned in for this. Let's do this. Like but tell our story and put on our show and let the dice fall where they fall. And now almost 1 million people have seen that first episode. So
Mhm. Agreed. There's almost a strange bit of comfort knowing that a large number of viewers end up getting drawn into that first episode, and there's like no changes that need to be done that you can think of.
For me, it's the reason why I care about the big numbers. And this was something that actually The Rock said, that he's like, the reason why I care about being a part of like $1 billion box office movie, he's like, it's not the money. The money's nice, but it's not the money. That if a movie has a big box office, it means it reached that many people. That what the story we told and the ride we took them on, so many people have taken that journey, which is the point. That's
Yep.
what we're really trying to do is take you along with us on a trip, which for me, I mean, I consider myself first and foremost a storyteller, even though that manifests in many, many, many different modes and outlets. I write for film and television. I DM and play, D&D and Vampire, all these other games and stuff.
Mhm.
But for my money, storytelling is what makes us human. In the fullness of time, when we find out what crows and elephants and dolphins are saying to each other, maybe they're telling stories too. But as of this exact second, we're the only ones that can sit around a fire and talk about the labors of Hercules and take meaningful, actionable insights about life from. Only we can do that. And so I take very seriously being able to give people 2 or 3 hours to forget about their troubles, because life is hard, man. It's gotten a lot harder lately, catastrophically so for some people. And being able to say, hey, why don't you just forget about everything that's happening and let's tell a vampire story or a spooky D&D story, or whatever else is coming down the pipeline. That's why that's so important to me.
All right. So as far as what I imagine, since you're part of different properties, you step into a ton of different settings. Is there any settings and systems that you particularly like love and like to go back to, besides obviously like Ravenloft and Domains of Dread?
Yeah, I'm like,
And
D&D and Vampire. That's kind of the the bread and the butter for me. But obviously we're working on Into the Motherlands. We're creating Into the Motherlands like in real time as we speak. Oh, that reminds me, we've a big meeting about Motherlands on Saturday. Did I double book myself? I don't think I did. Y'all are seeing this in real time, by the way. Then I'm like, yo, did I schedule 2 things at the same time? I don't think I did. One of the questions you have to ask yourself is, what is the system designed to simulate? I give this example a lot. Outbreak Undead is incredibly crunchy because it's trying to simulate life, real life. Like that door busts open and zombies come in. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to take this dice box and I'm going to throw one, hit it in its head. And then I'm going to do a cartwheel and jump out that window over there. Are you? You sure? Let's check that's far more improbable than you think. That's what Outbreak is trying to get across. You ever said something like D&D, which is explicit. You can do what it says you can do. You cannot do what it does not say you can do. It is never completely shook its roots as a grid-based war game. That has its place in a certain simplicity, but it also is kind of a binary pass-fail system. You hit or you miss. There's certain allowance for a crit where you hit big, or a natural one where you miss big. But for the most part, if you beat the goal by 5 or 10 points, means no difference than if you got the number exactly. Or if you missed it by 1, you still missed. Something like the World of Darkness is implicit. What do you intend? What are you trying to do? You tell me what your intent is, and I will tell you what to roll, and we'll see if you can make it happen or not. In the Vampire Player's Guide, there's a power called Celerity, and there is an inset that says how fast is fast, and it's like fast enough. This isn't 35 feet per round. With the dash action, that's not Vampire. It's like you're fast enough.
Agree. Yeah. There's a weird comfort in how loose Vampire is with those rule sets, and that you can, so long as it narratively makes sense, you could probably pull it off.
Although I realized I didn't actually answer your question of what systems did I want to go back to. I'm blessed that, because people ask me things like, "Ooh, what game do you want to play that you haven't?" I'm like, "There's not any. If I want to do something, I do it." But I would say, something I love, my favorite game of all time that people are surprised to always hear is Battlelords of the 23rd Century. I love Battlelords. It is Aliens meets the Fifth Element. That's Battlelords.
You sold me right there.
Yeah, right. And I was able to do some content for them with their recent launch of their 6th edition. The new Aliens from Free League, I've heard good things about. Haven't had a chance to try that yet. Avatar hasn't come out yet. I'll be looking forward to playing that when it comes out too. So, I'm sign me up for all of it.
I imagine you get approached by a number of companies to do various sponsored things. Is there any property that you would love to work with that you haven't had the chance to yet, as far as like maybe?
Yes. So every game that was formative to me, Battlelords, D&D, Vampire, Werewolf in particular, I've gotten to do something for. I've gotten to do something official for. But the very first game I ever played was a game called Rifts by Palladium. Yep. I won't say anything else about it, especially because this is expressly under me being like, I want to do something for it, but just to round out the bingo card of having contributed to formative content, something with Rifts and Palladium, even if it weren't Rifts, it's something for Palladium. Because the very first time people ask how I got started, I started playing when I was 13, playing Rifts. But years earlier than that, when I was 8, I think 8 or 9, my mom took me to a hobby shop for my birthday, and I saw Ninjas and Super Spies, which, if you've never seen Ninjas and Super Spies, on the cover, there's a battle happening and a ninja is shooting a dude in the face and the dude is shooting him back with a laser. Sold instantly. Bought Ninjas and Super Spies, took it home, opened it up, and I just saw these numbers and graphs. And I told my mom, I was like, "Oh, this is a computer book." And we returned it, and I bought a model of the Enterprise, and that was my birthday gift. And then years later, I did get another copy of Ninjas and Super Spies. But, I guess Palladium was there at the beginning. So, yeah, should want to do something with that.
All right. That is interesting, considering the depth and variety of source books that Rifts has. In that
they've put out a book or 40. Yeah.
Yeah. In which you can derail a campaign very quickly with Macross and Gods and Deities.
There were some creep issues. There were some creep issues, but again, we're talking expressly within the context of me contributing something, so I will refrain from further commentary. Yes.
All right. There's considering your work with like Motherlands, writing the book, and I know we can't say whether or not the 4th season is in the works or not officially. Is there anything, as far as like game design for like a system that's not D20 based, is there some unique challenges that you have found that you have been able to run into or overcome?
Only everything. Again, it all begins with that question of what are we trying to simulate? What the core design ethos of Into the Motherlands is self-determination. You are who you choose to be, not what you've been defined as. That is why the game doesn't have an attribute system. We don't have strength, con, dex, wisdom, none of that stuff, because there is an insidious inheritance of a lot of the games that we really love, that it's, the fair-skinned blonde ones are smarter and wiser. The dark-skinned brutish ones are strong, you know, but dim-witted, you know, that and a lot of these implications, you know, went unchallenged for a very long time, and it's changing, but you know, it still was a recurring theme. The same thing, the concept of having evil races, because any correlation between race and morality is problematic. Anytime you are bad because of what you are is wrong, just like you're good because of what you are is wrong, you know, because again, it's the implication that some people are innately superior to others, and that's highly problematic. You know, that's been an issue in this world of ours. So, you know, we set out to make that not a thing. You know, you also have to make the game familiar enough to be intuitive, but you also have to separate it from D&D. You know, obviously D&D is the biggest game in town, and a lot of us that are on this game are working on Motherlands have worked on D&D. So then we got to make it not D&D. That's why we have professions and not classes, you know, cultures and not races, although we just didn't want to call them races for a lot of reasons. But you know, knowing things like that being our design ethos, we run into questions like you know, we were discussing in our last developers meeting about whether or not we wanted there to be an option to multi-class, and there was some debate there, which, you know, that's my jam in D&D anyway. Like my main character Freely is a bard, warlock, paladin, sorcerer, so he's 4 classes. But you know, the thing that I just said to them straight up is I was like, well, what's more self-determinate, to say I started as a warrior, but I would choose to become a pilot, or at least pick up some piloting, or I chose to be a warrior and therefore I'm a warrior to the end of my days. You know, that choice makes itself when you understand what your guiding design principle is. You know, we're also designing it for a certain amount of flexibility, like the storyteller system with the World of Darkness. You know, mage, wraith, werewolf, and changeling in Vampire, of course, are 80% the same game. You know, some of the minutia, obviously the lore is different, some of the minutia, how some specific powers work, is different, but you know, once you understand attribute plus skill, you know, attribute plus superpower, you got it, you know. So we're designing with that in mind. That is, you know, what are more applications of the system down the line that we'll be able to do. So stuff like that, because you know, again, back to the outbreak scenario, how, or something like Call of Cthulhu, where you know, this is a psychological drama of the slow unraveling of your sanity. How you represent that numerically is not the same thing than if you're like, I'm gonna have a dinosaur pro wrestling game, you know. But then, you know, you have something like Cipher System in Cortex also, where it can be generic, but sometimes you can run the risk of it becoming too broad, you know. Sorry, it's been a very long day. Normally I would have faked that out if it was just audio, but you beautiful people can see me. You saw that I yawned. You know, so, you know, trying to make it trying to make the table broad enough that it can fit the whole family, but not so broad that, you know, it stretches outside and all the bugs get in, basically, you know, because trying to reach everyone is the same as trying to reach no one.
That is more profound than I think most of us can realize.
It's my gift to you. It'd be 2 a.m. You know, be staring at the ceiling like, wait a second.
Yeah, I'm seeing as how we are sort of running over. I'm going to call our interview here. We can always probably, if people love us enough, you know, demand more of this. Who knows?
You know, I am nothing if not a man of the people. We can work it out if you need me back.
All right. Anyway, it is great to have been able to talk to you, B. Dave, and be able to dissect sort of the inner workings of that mysterious mind.
You know, it is my pleasure, because I think people are often surprised to find out that it's like, I love talking about the things I love as much as I love doing the things I love, you know, like the psychology and the strategery of it, you know. Yeah, I love it all.
Yeah. As always, this has been the Generic Discussion. We talk all things behind the scenes as far as streaming and our favorite people's obsessions. Anyway,
Sorry, I had a secret message for the people that can see me. Sorry, audio listeners. You should pay for the upgraded version so you can see the video, and then you'll know what it was I just did for them.
all right. Anyway, this has been myself, Nestor Zamat, as well as with B-Dave, one often imitated but never duplicated. And we'll bid you all adieu.